Rodney James Alcala was a man who lived behind masks, a man who cultivated images of charm, intellect, and artistry. But beneath those masks was a predator whose cruelty defied comprehension. His life spanned decades, and so did his crimes. He was a killer who thrived on deception, who played the role of photographer, student, and even television personality, while leaving behind a trail of victims so numerous that investigators still do not know the full count. To the world, he became known as the dating game killer, but the lighthearted nickname does little to capture the depth of his savagery. His story is one of manipulation, violence, and evil hiding in plain sight. Rodney James Alcala was born on August 23, 1943, in San Antonio, Texas, to a Mexican-American family. His early childhood was marked by instability. His father abandoned the family when Rodney was just a boy, leaving his mother to raise him and his sisters largely on her own. The family relocated to Los Angeles, and though outwardly Rodney seemed like a bright, artistic child, those close to him sometimes noticed a streak of arrogance, a moodiness that made him difficult to understand. Teachers praised his intelligence but noted his tendency to be manipulative, to bend rules, and to charm his way out of trouble. He was handsome, articulate, and knew how to use both qualities to his advantage. Those traits would later become his most dangerous weapons. In 1960, at the age of 17, Alcala enlisted in the U.S. Army. For a time, he appeared to thrive in the structured environment, but that illusion would not last. After several years in uniform, he began showing signs of mental instability. In 1964, he deserted his post, and when the Army brought him in for evaluation, military psychiatrists diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder. They described him as manipulative, narcissistic, and incapable of genuine remorse. These were not just words on paper. They were warnings of the predator he was becoming. Discharged from the military, Alcala moved back to civilian life, but he carried with him a dark hunger that would soon emerge. In 1968, Alcala committed the first crime that revealed his true nature. Driving through Los Angeles, he spotted 8-year-old Tala Shapiro walking to school. Alcala pulled up alongside her, pretending to be a friendly stranger. He told her he wanted to show her a photograph and offered her a ride. Tala hesitated, but Alcala's charm disarmed her, and she climbed into his car. A man who witnessed the encounter sensed something was wrong and decided to follow. He trailed Alcala to his Hollywood apartment, then knocked on a nearby police officer's window to report what he had seen. When police arrived, they discovered Tala inside, naked, battered, and unconscious. She had been sexually assaulted and beaten with a steel bar. Alcala fled out the back before officers could catch him. Tala survived, but the trauma would haunt her for years. Alcala, meanwhile, disappeared. The FBI placed him on their most wanted list, but he slipped away eastward, creating a new life under a new name. By the early 1970s, Alcala had resurfaced in New York City, living under the alias John Berger. He enrolled in New York University's film school, where he studied under director Roman Polanski. Fellow students recalled him as intense, ambitious, and always carrying a camera. He cultivated the persona of a serious artist, someone with depth and sensitivity. But beneath the mask, he was hunting. In 1971, he struck again, this time murdering Cornelia Crilley, a 23-year-old flight attendant. She was found in her Manhattan apartment, raped and strangled with her own stockings. The case baffled detectives and remained unsolved for decades. At the same time, Alcala was building a collection of photographs, hundreds of them, many of young women and children. He lured them with promises of modeling opportunities, flattering them with his charm, convincing them to pose. Some of the photos were innocent, but others were sexually suggestive, disturbing. Years later, when these images were uncovered, police would be horrified to realize many of the people in them were never seen again. Alcala's double life continued. He moved seamlessly between identities, between cities, always just out of reach of the law. In 1974, he was arrested in New Hampshire for sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl. He served less than 3 years in prison before being paroled. Despite his history as a convicted sex offender, the California Parole Board released him back into society. He quickly resumed his predatory behavior. In 1977, he was rearrested for violating parole after offering marijuana to a 14-year-old girl, but again, he was released. Each time, the system failed to keep him contained, and each time, he returned to his hunting grounds. In 1978, Alcala's face would appear on national television. He auditioned for the game show The Dating Game and was selected as Bachelor. Number 1. Introduced as a successful photographer who enjoyed skydiving and motorcycling, Alcala played the part perfectly. He flashed his smile, delivered witty answers, and entertained the studio audience. To viewers at home, he was charismatic and charming. He even won the date, though the woman who chose him later refused to go out with him after finding him unsettling. Decades later, that bizarre clip would go viral, chilling people who realized they were watching a serial killer in the making. In 1979, Alcala committed the crime that finally brought him into sharp focus for investigators. His victim was Robin Samsoe, a 12-year-old girl from Huntington Beach, California. Robin loved ballet and was on her way to class when she encountered Alcala, who was loitering near the beach with his camera. Witnesses later reported seeing a man matching Alcala's description speaking to Robin. Hours later, she was missing. Her body was discovered in the foothills of the Sierra Madre Mountains 12 days later. She had been brutally assaulted and murdered. Police quickly zeroed in on Alcala. They searched his home and discovered a locker filled with photographs of women and children, along with evidence linking him to Robin's death. He was arrested and charged with her murder. At his trial, prosecutors painted him as a cunning predator who had carefully chosen and manipulated his victims. He was convicted and sentenced to death, but the legal process dragged on. His conviction was overturned twice on technicalities, forcing Robin's family to endure retrial after retrial, reliving the nightmare each time. By 2010, advances in DNA evidence had caught up with Alcala. Investigators were able to connect him not just to Robin Samsoe's murder, but to several other killings. Among them were Jill Barcomb, an 18-year-old runaway whose body was found near Hollywood in 1977. Georgia Wixted, a 27-year-old nurse murdered in 1977. Charlotte Lamb, a 31-year-old legal secretary killed in 1978. And Jill Parenteau, a 21-year-old college student murdered in 1979. Each woman had been raped and strangled. Each bore the marks of a killer who enjoyed prolonging suffering, who relished control. With the new evidence, prosecutors built a devastating case that revealed the true extent of Alcala's savagery. When he came to trial again in 2010, Alcala made the extraordinary decision to act as his own attorney. The result was one of the most bizarre trials in American history. He addressed the jury, asked himself questions in one voice, then answered in another, effectively conducting a mock interview with himself. The performance was chilling and surreal, a demonstration of his arrogance and his detachment from reality. The jury was unmoved. They convicted him of 5 murders and sentenced him to death. But even then, the full scope of his crimes was not known. DNA evidence later linked him to the murders of Cornelia Crilley and Ellen Hover in New York. Ellen Hover, a socialite and daughter of a nightclub owner, disappeared in 1977. Her body was later found in Westchester County. Alcala had written his name in her address book, yet somehow had avoided suspicion at the time. With the new links, his confirmed murder count rose, but detectives believe the true number of victims may be far higher. Some estimates suggest he may have killed as many as 50 women. In 2010, the Huntington Beach Police Department and the NYPD released hundreds of Alcala's photographs to the public in the hope of identifying the women and children depicted. Families of missing persons combed through the images, and in some cases, loved ones were identified. But many remain mysteries. Each face in those photographs is a haunting reminder of how many lives Alcala may have touched, how many victims he may have claimed. Alcala spent the last decade of his life on death row in California's Corcoran State Prison. He remained manipulative, controlling, and remorseless. He never admitted the full extent of his crimes, never provided answers for the countless families left wondering about their missing daughters and sisters. On July 24th, 2021, Rodney James Alcala died of natural causes at the age of 77. For some, his death was a relief, an end to a monster who had evaded justice for too long. For others, it was a bitter reminder that he died without ever revealing the true scope of his atrocities. Today, Rodney Alcala is remembered not just as a serial killer, but as a predator who embodied the dangers of deception. He was the smiling man on television, the charismatic photographer, the student, the co-worker. He was ordinary enough to blend in, charming enough to disarm suspicion, and intelligent enough to evade capture for years. But beneath that mask was only cruelty, only evil. His story is a chilling reminder that predators often hide in plain sight, and that sometimes the most dangerous face is the one that looks the most familiar.